Welcome back to Decide Your Destiny. I'm super excited for our guest today. He's a master of 75 hard, first form brand rep, and lost over 150 pounds in a massive transformation. Please welcome Josh Cannelora. Thanks for being here, man. Really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely, bro. Great job on the last name too. That's impressive.
I got it right? Awesome.
Na-
Awesome.
nailed it first time, man. Growing up, I literally can tell you where every Cannelora in America lives, and I can't tell you how many Italian desserts, fruits, and dishes I have been called growing up because people don't sound it out.
Oh, man, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah, well, the first name's easy. I've been used to saying that for a
Sure. Right?
while.
Yeah, great first name. But yeah, the last name, it's phonetic. Just people like to add lots of vowels. They assume it's Italian and they just start getting all fancy and dramatic with it. Whoa, just sound it out. Cannelora.
I can see that. I can see that. But man,
Yeah.
well, thank you for being here. To start this off, first I need to preface this with telling the audience how disciplined you are because you just had a knee surgery a few days
Mm-hmm.
ago and you
Mm-hmm.
were on day 72 of 75
Mm-hmm.
hard. My listeners probably know what 75 hard is at this point.
Yeah.
So day 72,
Mm-hmm.
75 hard, you get knee surgery.
Yeah.
And and where's your head at? Like you're thinking you're gonna finish this. What are you doing, you know?
So I'll give you the backstory. So the quick backstory is, so this was round, I don't even know, 5 or 6 of 75 hard. Last year, I jumped in on 75 hard literally 4 days after Andy invented the program. Made it to day 69, woke up on day 70, thought I was on day 70 and realized I didn't take a progress picture the day before. So I failed. I was on day
This
one
is
and
the
there was
this is the first round you're talking about.
very first round. And
Okay.
so realized I failed and there was nothing I can do about it. It wasn't like I just had a pizza or a beer. And the day was already over. So there's nothing I can do. I literally cried. I was a 42-year-old man crying in the very chair I'm sitting in now. And my wife came out and she's like, "What's wrong?" Told her. She's like, "What are you going to do?" I'm like, "I have to restart." And so I restarted that day, went through and completed. So 2 attempts, 1 completion. And then I went on and there was other phases and got on phase 1, got to like day 26. Same thing, got to day 26 on phase 1, forgot a picture. That picture is my Achilles heel, man. So so I wound up restarting and I'm like, well, I have plenty of time. So I'm just going to do 75 hard again. So last year I started my 3rd round and completed 75 hard again last year. So last year, 2019, I wound up attempting 75 hard 3 times, completed it twice. Absolutely changed my life. No weight loss surgery or magic wraps. I mean, I use First Form products, but Andy, who is the First Form founder and CEO and the designer of 75 hard, will tell you it has nothing to do with products or weight loss. It's a mental toughness program. And so I lost 150 pounds with 75 hard through mental discipline. It had nothing to do with what supplements I took or which exercises I did. And I had lost weight before. I've been overweight my whole life. I've been as heavy as 405 pounds. I may have been heavier, but the scale only went up to 400. So 405 is the last number it registered. And I had lost down to like 270, but I never sustained it because, like with any diet, it only addressed external. It never addressed internal. And so, anyways, 75 hard it saved my life. It changed everything. And so going into 2020, I had quit my job. I was now full-time into fitness, starting to build up some credibility in the 75 hard community and in the fitness industry and doing well. And, going into 2020, I finished the entire Live Hard program. I got the tattoo. Andy was gracious enough to give me a shout out in the book. I'm an inside cover jacket as a testimonial. I mean, we're rocking and rolling and everything's great. And then COVID happens. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to jump on 75 hard and I'm going to do it again. And this was the first time I got to about, in the thick of when COVID first started in March, April, I got to like day 30 something and failed for the first time knowing I had failed that day. And basically what happened was my cheap elliptical machine that I bought at whatever sports store here in this city, broke down, and I still had to do one of my workouts. And my son's coming over, and all the stores are closed. Normally I could just take it back and exchange it, and just all the mental pressure of, man, I can't fail. I'm Mr. 75 hard, and my son's coming over, and people are watching, and everybody knows. And I had a meltdown. I'm like, I literally have this elliptical tipped over in my driveway. I'm kicking it. I got wrenches. I'm like, every meme you can imagine, it was me. I'm kicking it, cussing, thought bubbles, dust clouds, I was like, that's it. I quit. I don't even know what I'm going to do, but this day is done. I tap, and I go in the house, and my wife didn't know what to do. She was like, what? I'm like, I can't do it. I'm mentally exhausted. I'm tapping out. And that was a humbling experience, because it really gave me an appreciation for how powerful, I've always been a mental health advocate, and, being mentally tough and 75 hard, I thought I learned some things, but it was a great humbling experience, because it gave me appreciation for people that had failed and knowing they were going to fail. It was forgetting your progress picture. It was almost like I got a pass on failing. Like, well, I mean, it was a progress picture. It wasn't like he's a loser, and wow, what a guy. He sucked it up on day 70 and restarted and finished anyways. And it almost gave me like this street cred, this extra, but failing knowing, like choosing to like not complete the day, even though it was only like 6 or 7 in the afternoon. I could have just went for a walk. I mean, there's lots of things I could have done, but I didn't. And so this was like March, April. And so that was a real breakdown. And I was like, wow. And it took me about a week to get my head together. And after about a week of getting my head together, I restarted. And, I didn't, Andy, if you follow him or you follow anybody on the program, they'll always tell you, don't overthink it. If you have an inkling that you want to do it, you just have to do it. Because if you're like, I'm going to wait till the 1st, I'm going to wait till Monday. How many New Year's resolutions make it? Right? Because all year, oh, well, New Year's comes around, and then it comes around, and then you fail. Then what? You wait a whole nother year? So I didn't put any thought into it. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to restart. And so I restart. And so I don't know, it was like April, May, somewhere in there. So I restart, and I didn't really look at when the end date was. I didn't give any thought to it. I'm just like, I have to do this. I have to get my head right. And so I go into it a little more humble, a little more wiser. I'm like, okay. And that was the round that I had just completed. That's how it started. I didn't put any thought into it. Now, during all of this, from 2 years ago, before I even knew about 75 hard, when I was 380 pounds, 370 pounds. I was a regional manager for a local food coffee place, and we were having a big pool party, July of 2018, super overweight. And I go to throw one of my baristas, I say kid, early 20s, super fit guy. I go to throw him in the pool. I thought it was going to be a funny dad moment and just toss him in the pool. He's walking around, muscles out, chest out, and I'm going to take him down a notch and throw him in the pool. Well, as soon as I touched him, he buckles down, drops all of his weight, and it wasn't as quick as I thought it was going to be. And now everybody's looking. So now I have to throw him in the pool. And so I bear down with all 380 pounds that I have, plus his 180 pounds. And I go to lift up on what was already a bad knee. I had shattered my kneecap when I was 16. And so for 30 years, 20 years, I'm walking around. I already have a bum knee and I'm overweight. So I pick him up on that bad knee. And as I twist on that bad knee, I just feel a snap. And we both go into the pool and I'm crying underwater. And it wound up being that I just absolutely shredded my knee. I tore my ACL and my meniscus in one shot. I mean, I just destroyed that knee. So going into 75 hard, I never had surgery because I was too heavy. I was even, when I went into the ER the next day, I was too fat for the MRI table. The MRI table maxed at 350. So, I mean, going into 75 hard, I had lots of motivation to lose weight and get healthy. Well, over all of last year, 2019, I knew surgery was like, that was the end goal someday. whenever that happened. And so I lost all that weight, and at the beginning of this year, I got cleared for surgery again. And that was like January, February, right before COVID. And so when COVID happened, when, everything shut down, one of the first things was we got notices from all the local hospitals that all elective surgeries, and a knee replacement was considered elective because it's not life or death, it's quality of life, were canceled until further notice. So that was part of my little meltdown. I was like, I don't even know when I'm going to have surgery. I don't know what's going on. And, so when I restarted, my knee hurt, but it was tolerable. I was dealing with it. And so California, it's like sometimes, 1 minute everything's open, next minute everything's closed. 1 minute restaurants are open, then they're closed. And then this is okay, then this is not. And dentist offices can be open, but then they can't. And then they can, but you have to have masks and shields. And it just changed day to day. Well, literally, I'm like on day 50 or whatever. And I get a call, and this is like early July. And I get a call, and they're like, hey, this is your doctor's office, and we're just letting you know you're all cleared for surgery. And we have a surgery date for July 28th. And I'm like, all of a sudden, like, it becomes real. I go from, I have no idea if I'm going to even have surgery this year, to like, oh, in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, you're cleared for surgery. And I'm like, and I start panicking. And I'm like, hang on. And I'm like, I'm on day 50, whatever. And I'm like doing the math. And I'm like, wait, will I be done with 75 hard? Will I not be done? And so I go to a calendar, and I'm like literally 61, 62, 63. I'm like counting out the days. And we get to July 28th, and it's like 72. Son of a, do you have anything in August? Like, I'm like, I can't fail again. I'm like 0 for 2 or 0 for 3 in 2020 on 75 hard after going 2 for 3. I'm a baseball guy. I was batting 666 last year in 2019 with 75 hard. I'm batting 0 in 2020. I'm like, man, I got to complete at least one time. I'm like, how about August? Do you have anything in August? And she's like, yeah, actually we have August 11th. I'm like, great. I'm like, I'll take it. And she's like, okay, well, just so you know, we're really booked up and everything's really crazy right now. There's a lot, you have to get a COVID test. You have to do all these things. I'm like, okay, no problem. So I hang up. Immediately, I text my wife, who coincidentally works at the hospital. And so I text her. I was like, hey, I just got a call from the orthopedic surgeon. And guess what? Surgery's on. And she's like, great. When? What? And I'm like, well, those jokers. They offered me July 28th. But I mean, come on, 75 hard. And she sends me like a question mark. And I'm like, so I took August 11th. They have August 11th. And she like sends me another question mark. She's like, why? I'm like, what? You mean why? Come on, And she's like, yeah, but I mean, this is like your whole life. You've had a bad knee since you were 16. Your whole life, you've been waiting to have a good knee, to have this replacement surgery. I mean, literally before this surgery, I had 1% cartilage. I had uncountable bone fragments and chips floating around in my knee from when my knee was shattered at 16. I'd also shattered my pelvic bone. And because they were more worried about me walking and healing my pelvic bone, they just put me in traction and kept my leg out of socket. Never did surgery, never even addressed the shattered kneecap. They're like, well, you're young, it'll heal. Well, it did, but all the pieces from the fragments from where the knee had shattered they like started calcifying and just chipping away. Like imagine putting like gravel in your kneecap and just years of that gravel grinding down on your cartilage and on your kneecap, and being 150 to 200 pounds overweight, fluctuating anywhere from 100 to 200 pounds overweight. I mean, my knee was just shot. I literally, before the surgery, I can put my hand on the outside of my kneecap, and as I would flex it, I could feel pieces just moving around. And my wife's like, this is a once in a lifetime. She's like, I know you can complete 75 hard. She's like, I know you're mentally tough. Nobody would question you for, not completing 75 hard because of knee surgery. Nobody. She's like, this is ridiculous. She's like, I don't want to play this card. She's like, but listen, everything changes every day. Do you even know that surgery is going to be an option August 11th? She's like, if they offered you surgery tomorrow, if they offered you surgery a week from now, you take the soonest date they have, because literally things change every day. She's like, take the surgery, call them back, beg, plead, do whatever you got to do. It's like, you're right. All right. So I call them back, and I was like, hey, and I get this long automated message. We're really overwhelmed right now. Unless this is an emergency, don't even bother leaving a message. We have your case file. We'll get back to you. And I'm like, hey, so I know you just called and offered me surgery, and I told you no. Is there any way I can actually go ahead and take that earlier date? And like the next day, she calls me first thing in the morning. She's like, hey, I got your message. The 28th is great. Let's go ahead and do it. I'm like, all right.
Let me ask you a question on that. So when your wife's name is Gloria, right?
Yeah.
When Gloria calls you and tells you this to move the date up to July 28th, and nobody's going to fault you for not finishing 75 hard, when you changed it to July 28th, in your mind, is that your end date? Or in your mind, are you pushing through after surgery?
So here's the deal. So literally, I didn't know, man. I mean, the battle's raging. I mean, if you remember, like from when we were kids, like the little cartoons, you know, Tom and Jerry, the devil angel or the devil and the angel on either shoulder, you know, one's whispering, just eat the cake. And the other one's like, don't eat your vegetables. And they're like going back and forth and arguing. Literally, that's going on. You know, I got on the one side, I'm like, okay, we can figure this out. Okay, we got this. And on the other side, it's like, dude, there's some cheesecake in the freezer. If you're not going to finish this, let's just start prepping for winter, baby. Let's start hibernation process now. You're going to be laid up. You need to start getting calories in now. You need to be healthy for, I mean, like, it's the back and forth. I mean, the battle is going on from the gate. And so after I call and I make it, like, so then as the battle's going, I'm like, literally, I'm running I'm running the scenarios out in my head to completion, both ways in my head. I'm like, okay, what does it look like if I push through? And well, what does it look like if I don't push through? And this was the variable that kept coming back to me over and over and over and over. And you hear Andy talk about this all the time. And you hear actually a lot of great speakers and a lot of great motivational people will tell you this over and over. And it is some of the most sound, practical wisdom ever. Control what you can control. Control if you have 100% control that 100%. If it's not in your control. So like in my head, I have zero control over what's going to happen from the minute I check in for surgery after, right? Like I have no control over how the surgery goes or how long I'm going to be sedated or if the surgery goes well or if I wake up. I have no idea what's going to happen on July 28th, but this is early July. Like I still have control over this day, and I have control over the next day, and I have control over all the days up to July 27th, and even I have control over July 28th up until they wheel me in for surgery. So in my head here, I knew this is what would happen. I had to plan and articulate and verbalize and visualize and speak into existence and whatever other verbiage or thought process or philosophical way you want to articulate it. But I had to put it in the universe that I was going to finish 75 hard no matter what. And as I knew, the minute I lowered the standard and the minute I took my foot off the gas and said, well, maybe I'll finish, maybe I won't, but 72 out of 75 ain't bad. And kind of like failing for forgetting a progress picture, you get a lot more grace than somebody who failed on day 25 because they didn't feel like getting up, or they wanted to go out for pizza and beer with the bros, or they had chocolate with the girls and some wine. You get a lot more grace for having surgery, and that's why you failed. I knew if I, even for a second in my head, said, okay, it's okay if I don't finish, I'm just going to give it the old college try up until that day, I knew I wouldn't. I knew that it would be okay to like drink 3/4 of a gallon of water. I knew it wouldn't be as important to read my pages. I could read some of them. I knew that I could let off the gas with counting my calories. I could just, have 2 or 3 extra protein bars. I could eat that cheesecake that had been in the freezer waiting for me. I could, I knew the gas, I would let off the gas. I knew. So I had to, it's almost like, training for a boxing event or a big football game or a gymnastics meet or any other thing that you prepare really hard for, a summit, a presentation. I had to go into it and train, not just intentional and intense like I normally would, but even more so. Like I had to go at this with everything I had. And so that was the approach. So I started putting it out on the internet, started posting on my social media. Hey, surgery's coming up, but I'm pressing through. I'm going to finish. I mean, I had to start calling myself out. I had to start putting it out there. I had to almost create this PR monster to where I had something to hold myself accountable. I had to put it out there. And so leading up to the surgery, man, I'll be honest, I still had no idea if it was even possible. And this was the honest conversation. One day, my wife and I were driving back from somewhere, and I'm like a week out from surgery. And, we just picked up all the, a bag of medications, anti-inflammatories and blood thinners and pain meds and stool softeners and, all these, just a whole bag of meds and this breathing apparatus to increase your airflow so you don't get pneumonia. And just all these things, and we have pamphlets and booklets and, all these booklets. Everybody in the booklet is, 70, 80, 90, 100,000 years old. There's nobody my age, nobody in their 40s, with a jet black beard, and any kind of muscle definition. And, all the books are like, make sure you get outside for sunshine for 5 to 10 minutes a day. And your mental health is super imperative. And try not to sit down on cushions that are too soft. And it's written for that age demographic. And I realize as I'm reading that, I'm like, okay, and it's all sound advice. And I joke now, but when you're 80 and 70, those are real things.
Right.
Getting outside for 10 minutes is a huge fiasco when you have a hip replacement or a knee replacement. But for me, I'm like, I joke about that, or I bring that to light to say that there wasn't a lot of literature for what a 40-year-olds do for knee replacement, or what does recovery look like for somebody my age, or what is somebody, there's just not a lot. I had no idea what to prepare for.
Yeah.
And so my wife and I, we have this conversation, and, we got all the meds and it's starting to get real, and, we're trying to figure out logistics, and she's taking a couple of days off because I don't know how mobile I'm going to be or what. And she's like, hey, I know how you get. And she's like, I just want you to be okay if for some reason you can't finish. And I remember, and she means that in the most supportive way. All your family that, wants to give you the out for not finishing something, they don't mean to sabotage you. People, like when you want to start a new business venture, or when you're getting ready to take out a loan that doesn't make any sense to anybody, or you're pulling a second mortgage on your house because in your gut things are about to turn. And that friend is like, are you sure right now rates aren't that great? It's not like they mean to talk you out of it. They can't feel the fire in your heart. They can't feel the passion that is locked up in your bones. They can't. And so all you can really do is do your best to explain it to them and hope they love you and trust you enough to just support you, even if they don't understand. And that's the reality. And I just looked at her and I said, baby, I know you don't mean to talk me out of anything. And I know that you mean that from a very loving and supportive place, but I have to tell you, I have to go into this thinking that I'm going to finish it, even if I don't. Like, I'll be safe. I'm not going to do anything to jeopardize myself or to undo the surgery. But I said, sweetheart, if I don't go into this, and it's everything I just talked about, I said, if I don't go into this with everything I have, then I'm going to start letting off the gas now. And I'm afraid I can't compromise now. I can't. I go, my mental health. I go, I can't control COVID. I'm an extrovert's extrovert. It kills me 1% every day that I have to stay in my house. It kills me 3% every day that if I want to go into the grocery store, I have to wear a mask. It kills me that my kids are not going to have a normal school year this year. It kills, like, all these things are just 1,000 needles in my heart, but I can't control them. I said, I can control whether or not I do day 68, day 69, day 70, day 71. I can control those things. And I said, we'll see what we see on day 73 or 72. But for now, I can't even entertain that thought. It's like, are you okay if you don't win the big game? Nobody who sits down with Tom Brady, before a Super Bowl and is like, so Tom, I know how you get. You're a pretty intense guy. Are you going to be okay if you don't win the Super Bowl? Nobody asks him that. You can't even have that mindset. Of course he's going to be okay. He's lost Super Bowls before, right? Like, it's okay, but he's won 6 of them. I don't even like the guy, right? Like, I'm not even a Patriots fan.
But as soon as you think that you can lose, that's when it's over.
Exactly. But I respect the hell out of the guy for that mentality. He's so mentally strong. Exactly. He never goes into any game thinking, the bro signed with the Buccaneers. When's the last time the Buccaneers did anything? So clearly he's got some good mental strength, right? Like, he didn't go to the Buccaneers thinking, gosh, if I lose, it's going to be okay. No, he's going there like, I'm going to be the first guy in franchise. We're going to win the first Super Bowl since they beat the Raiders and blah. Like, he's going into it thinking, I'm going to win. I'm a champion. Like, and if he doesn't, he doesn't, whatever. And so I just told my wife, I said, that's the mindset I have to go into. And so day 72 is the day of the surgery. And the plan was, I just finished reading the book on 75 Hard, and Andy detailed some things that were never expressly articulated. They were hinted at. One of them was, I knew the workouts had to be separate. And in my head, I always told people when they asked me, they're like, so how separate? And I'm like, I don't know, at least an hour and a half. I'm like, it has to be intentional. Well, in the book, he's like 3 hour minimum. He's like, he spells out everything. If you read the book, the 75 Hard book, and you still have questions, 75 Hard is not for you. I don't know what else to say, but like, the dude spells out every single thing, like, in detail, right? And nothing was a surprise in the book, but so I read it and I'm like, all right, well, 3 hours is, if that's what Papa says, then I'm gonna respect that. So in my head, I'm like, all right, so this is how it's got to play out in my head. So it was a Tuesday, and it's gonna be day 72. And it was supposed to be arm day, but I switched it to leg day because I wanted to get one more leg day in before surgery. And I'm like, all right, well, check in at the hospital is 9:15, and this is where it gets really hairy. So check in at the hospital is 9:15. So I have to like backwards engineer this mother. So check in at the hospital is 9:15. At 8 a.m., I cannot have any liquids or anything at all. Like, nothing can go past my mouth after 8 a.m. But surgery's at 9:15. Check-ins at 9:15. Surgery's at 12:15. So at 9:15 is check-in. 8 a.m. nothing can go into my mouth. From 8 a.m. to midnight the night before, no solid food at all. All I can have is clear liquid: coffee, apple juice, water, Gatorade. So from 12 to 8, no food. So from 12 the day before, any food I'm going to get in has to be before 12. Well, staying up doesn't do me any good because Andy says the day ends when you go to sleep. So even if I stay up till, if I go to sleep at 8 the night before, then try and wake up at 10:30 to get a big meal in, I'm like, no, that's BS. That's not going to work. So this is just going to be a rough mother trucker. So I'm like, all right. So day 71, I still stick to my calories. I do my workout, do everything like normal. But I go to bed at I went to bed at 8:30, 9. I went to bed early because get up at 3 because I'm like, I have to get one of my workouts done at 3 or 4 in the morning if I'm still going to have a 3-hour break before my next workout, because I'm going to honor that, 3-hour window or whatever. So I did. So day of surgery, day 72, I get up at 3 a.m. and throw on my clothes And I'm like, well, I'm not trying to walk around the neighborhood at 3 in the morning and freak people out in my weight vest like a psycho. So I take my exercise bike and I put it in the driveway, and I'm like, all right, here's my outdoor. So I do my outdoor at 3 in the morning, and I get done with that. Come in the house, and I think I had some coffee and I don't know, like some BCAs or something clear, and some water. Oh, that was the other thing. I had to chug all my water. I had to get my gallon of water in from between 3 and 8. So I have 5 hours. That was the other caveat. So I had 5 hours to get my gallon of water. I knew there was something else. So at 3, as soon as I got up, man, I'm chugging water. I'm just chugging water, and I'm on the exercise bike, and I'm chugging water. So I get done with that, and I take a pic and I post it, and I'm like, hey, today's day of surgery. So I get done. I'm about halfway done with my water. I get like half of it done in the first hour. And then now I'm reading. So I start doing my pages, and I start chugging more water. And then I have some clients come over that I personal train, and I train them, and I'm chugging water. And then my buddy comes over at, I want to say like 7. So it was like 3, whatever the 3-hour window was later. And so he comes over at 7, and we train from 7 to 8. And I get the last of my water done before 8. So I got my outdoor, my indoor, my pages, my water, and the only thing left is diet, no cheat meal. But I'm like, that's it. So I had everything that I could possibly do done by 8 o'clock. So 8 o'clock, the day is done.
Wow.
I got all my tasks done for 75 hard for day 72. Jump in the shower. Have my wife pack me up some level 1 bars and my supplements for after the surgery, and load everything up. And in my head, I went out that night. I'm like, I asked the doctor, I'm like, can I get out that night? And he like kind of looks at me, he's like, we'll see. And he's like, typically it's a day to 2-day stay. And I'm like, doc, there's no way. I'm like, either that night or the next morning, I got to be out. He's like, okay. And so we go in 9:15, check in, go through the day. They start my surgery at like 11:45. It was fantastic. Literally, they wheel me into the OR, and it's nothing like TV ever is. Like, I'm looking around, I'm like, this doesn't look like TV at all. What is this place? And they sit me forward, and he's like, hey, we're going to put a little something in your spine, like a spine blocker. We're going to give you a little shot in the back. I'm like, okay. And he's like, hey, we're going to give you a little oxygen. I'm like, okay. There wasn't even a countdown, bro. He's like, we're going to give you a little oxygen. Okay. I'm like, uh-huh. Literally the next thing I know, they're like pulling electrodes off my chest. I'm like, all right, we're all done. I was like, hey, all right. And that was it, man. And so they wheel me back into my room, and I'm a little bit groggy, but I'm pretty coherent, and I'm surprised at how coherent and how good I feel. And eat a level 1 bar, and I'm drinking some water just because my mouth was so dry, and have my level 1 bar. And the doctor comes by like an hour or two later, and he's like, how you feeling? I'm like, I'm feeling pretty good. And he's like, surgery went a little bit longer than expected. And I look up at the wall, and I realized I must have been in surgery for like 3 hours or something. It was supposed to be like an hour. And he's like, yeah, he's like, so they cut from like just above the knee, a few inches above the knee, to like a few inches below the knee. I mean, it's like 8 to 10 inch cut. I mean, it's a big old thing, right straight down. And he's like, yeah, as soon as we cut that thing open and exposed your kneecaps, so like they basically pulled the kneecaps out, they shaved down, they cut down each side of the leg, and they resurface it. So it's like resurfacing rotors, and then they put metal plates in. Then once the metal plates in, those are there forever. So I'll forever have metal plates in my knees. And then once the metal plates are in place, then it's like, again, like brakes or on your car. Once the metal plates are there, then they put like these plastic caps over them, and that's your new cartilage for your knee. And that's how it works. And so typically, the reason I don't do surgery on somebody as young as me is because those plastic caps will wear down. And so usually they'll have to go in 10, 20 years later, depending on how fast they wear down, open you back up in the same spot, clean off that plastic, pull off the plastic, make sure the metal's good, and then just put new plastic caps in the metal, and boop, good to go. And that surgery is usually really quick. Like, that's a 1 day in and out, pop you open, put new pads on, and boom, good to go. And he's like, when we exposed your leg, he's like, as we pulled out each piece of leg, every time I moved the leg around, new bone fragments and bone spurs were popping out that we kept having to clean out. Ooh. He's like, the damage was so excessive. They're like, we're just amazed that you were walking and doing what you were doing. And I'm like, I guess I am too.
That's unbelievable.
So that was day 72. Day 73, I wake up and, the nurses come in and they're like, they're worried about me, peeing. They're like, we want to make sure your kidneys are okay. I'm like, you start bringing me water, I will have a gallon of water drank in the next hour. And they look at me. I'm like, I promise. I drink a gallon of water a day. I'm like, I actually need to have a gallon of water, so you'd be doing me a solid. So they start bringing me these 32-ounce pitchers, and I had like a gallon done in 45 minutes, and the nurses are just like looking at me. I'm like, bring me that little pee bucket. I'll fill that sucker up. Give me 15 minutes. And sure enough, man, I had that thing filled. And they're like, well, kidneys are good. Kidneys are good. I'm like, yeah, my kidneys are great. I haven't had alcohol in like 10 months, and I drink a gallon of water a day. My kidneys love me. And so they're like, okay, well, the doctor will be in to check on you. So the doctor comes in again. He's like, how are you feeling? I'm like, I'm fantastic, doc. When are you busting me out of this place? He's like, you ready? I'm like, I'm ready to go, man. Sign the papers. Let's get this going. He's like, all right. He's like, if you feel like you're okay, he's like, we'll have physical therapy come in. And if you can walk around the hallway and do one lap unassisted with your walker, I'll sign off. I'm like, deal, bet, easy, no problem. Physical therapy comes in. I do my lap. They put like a little step platform. Like, okay, we want to see you practice getting. I'm like, easy, let's go. How many laps do you want me to do? How many steps do you want me to do? We got this. They're like, oh, you're a go-getter, aren't you? I'm like, yes, I am. And so I do my laps, come back in. They're like, all right, well, we're good. So physical therapy signs off and the doctor signs off. Then my nurse comes in, and this is like 8:30 in the morning. And she's like, hey, I'm going to be your nurse today. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be here that long. We don't even need to get to know each other. I don't want the lunch menu. I don't want the breakfast menu. You can bring me some eggs if you want. I don't want to know I don't want to know anything. Just let's go. And she's like, well, I just got on. Does the doctor know that? I'm like, doctor already signed, baby. Let's go. She's like, okay, let me go check your paperwork. I text my wife, because again, my wife works at the hospital, and I'm like, she comes in at 8. I was like, hey, let's go. Let's do this. She's like, the doctor already came in. I'm like, doctor came in, physical therapy came in. I'm ready to go. She's like, oh my. She's like, okay, well, let me see who your nurse is. I'll text her. And I'm like, okay. The nurse like calls my wife, and she's like, is this your husband? I was like, yeah, I apologize in advance if he's a little feisty. She's like, oh no, it's okay. Is he really going home? She's like, oh yeah, he's ready to go. She's like, okay. And she's like, you think he'll be okay? And Gloria's like, oh yeah, he'll be okay. And so I was out, man, within 24 hours. I think I was out. Wow. And I posted the Instagram of us in the car rolling away by like 10 the next morning.
Unbelievable. And day 74 and 75, you did at home, right?
So yeah, so day 73, 4, and 5. So the next 3. So I was released on a Wednesday. Wednesday was 73. Thursday was 74. Friday was 75. And so yeah, before I even got out of the hospital, I already had my water down, had my gallon in. So I'm like, we're on a winning streak. I'm like, get me home. I have a pretty good home gym in the garage. I'm like, get me home. We will figure this out. And I literally asked the doctor like 2 weeks before surgery when we were doing a pre-op. I said, man, I had like so many questions. I had to have been his favorite patient ever. He's like, I'm never operating on anybody younger than 70 again. I'm like, what about this? And what about this? And can I still take my greens? And can I still take my fish oil? And can I still do this? And can I still do that? And one of the first things I asked him is like, I'm like, so the day after surgery, doc, how immobile am I going to be? And he's like, really? That's up to your pain tolerance threshold and what you're willing to do. And I'm like, so hypothetically speaking, I said, if I have a walker, could I walk up and down the sidewalk or my driveway for, let's say 45 minutes? And he's like, without a break? I'm like, without a break, 45 minutes. But I said, not fast, just up and down. He's like, hypothetically speaking, I'm like, swell. That's all I needed to know, doc. And he's like, okay, that's a random question. So yeah, so Wednesday I get home, got my water in. And I knew mentally that the toughest part was going to be the outdoor workout. And so I sat for a minute, and I think I had some breakfast, or I had a little something to eat. And I started reading my pages, get the pages out of the way, went to the bathroom, took my progress picture, and so don't want to forget that. That's killed me before. And so I'm like, all right, babe, let's go. And so we live in Redding, California, where in the summer, I mean, I think this Saturday it's supposed to be 109 or 108. I mean, we stay from July through August, we stay in the triple digits. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
after 100 degrees, it doesn't matter. It's all hot. And so Wednesday, I think that day was like 103, 98 in the shade. And so we go out, and I'm like, all right, well, she's like, what are you gonna do for your outdoor? I'm like, I'm gonna just walk up and down the street for 45 minutes best I can. And so I did, man, and I made it. I mean, that was the hardest by far. That was the hardest outdoor workout I've ever done. And I mean, we have this little like 3% grade hill on our street that's like nothing. And dude, that may as well have been Everest. And I made it about like, I want to say like 28 minutes. I made it like 3/4 of a mile. And I'm like, all right, I'm pretty exhausted. And she's like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, why don't you wheel out my weight bench to the driveway and give me some dumbbells? And I go, I'll do like some sit-ups and I'll do some curls outdoor, and I'll finish out my 45 minutes. I said, but I'm feeling pretty accomplished. I'm like, I stayed upright and I walked intentionally for like a good 30 minutes almost. I go, I'll do 15 minutes of resistance training in the sun. And I go, I feel 100% good about that. She's like, all right. And so I did. And I finished my 45 minutes outdoor. And I wound up doing an indoor workout later, did a bunch of upper body stuff and some pull-ups. My indoor workout, man, I was exhausted. I didn't realize how much it was going to wipe me out. But
man, I mean, this whole thing though, just the fact, I mean, just first of all, the day of the surgery, waking up at 3 a.m. or getting started at 3 a.m, doing everything you need to do before 8 a.m. That is something unbelievable. And then obviously getting home right after the surgery and continuing. But one of the things that you said throughout this whole process is, it's easy. It's not easy, but it kind of gives you an out where if you forgot the progress picture or you have a surgery, and it's almost like an excuse to make that's easy, right? Like, okay, I'm done. Sure. I have surgery, but
justifiable.
Yeah, exactly. Justifiable. But it's amazing to see the change in mindset of wanting to go the hard route. And I know Andy talks about that all the time. And it's like choosing the hard path. You come across these decisions all the time where you can take the easy road or the hard road. And this is just a definition of taking the road less traveled. And it's how have you seen that play over into other areas of your life? Or like, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
absolutely.
On a day-to-day basis now, when you're making a decision about anything, about work, about a relationship, about your fitness, about anything, does that what you developed through 75 Hard and through your fitness journey carry over into other areas of your life where you choose the hard path?
Absolutely. It's ruined me. Pisses me off. It does, man. Like, yeah. And my kids, I hope someday they'll appreciate it, but I made my 14-year-old son read Extreme Ownership by Jocko, and he loved it because he's super into war, and he's a World War II buff at the ripe old age of 14. And so he loves all things like military, weapon related, and it's an outstanding book. And but he hates it because I'm always on to him. Like, anytime I'm like, hey, did you take care of that? And he'll say, well, Nikki, my sister, she didn't do that first, or, well, I wasn't up in time, or what? And I'll just say, hey, are you taking ownership? Are you owning that? Oh, no, Dad, I'm not owning it. I'm like, all right, so whose fault is it? And so now it's like, it ups the game to me, like now I have to lead by example. Now I have to take the harder route. Now I have to. And so our mantra in our family now has always been, well, not always been, that's probably the problem. Recently, the mantra is, take the harder route. don't take the path of least resistance. Nothing of value comes free. Everything worth having is worth working for. And so, yeah, man, in anything, whether it's fitness or whether it's my marriage, I mean, gosh, it's so much
Even
easier. Here's a great example in marriage and communication. It is way easier. And I see a lot of couples will say, oh, we never fight. And the first thing I always want to say is, and I've done marriage counseling forever. I used to be in ministry. I was a licensed pastor for years and years. And the first thing I'll tell them is, oh, so you never fight. So one of you is not talking and one of you is not being honest. What? I'm like, you have a uterus. He does not. He is a male. You are a female. You are two completely different creatures trying to coexist in harmony. There's going to be friction. If you hold metal to a grinder, there are sparks. It's not bad. It's natural. And I said, there's going to be friction. The difference is, I don't want to hear about the couple that never fights. I want to hear about the couple that can fight with rules and still love each other and communicate. And we hear fight.
Have the hard discussions respectfully.
Yeah. Like the discussion that me and my wife are having about the surgery and 75 hard. One of the things that I'm learning to do in my marriage is not walk away. And by walk away, I mean, we used to get in these big fights. She would, challenge me on something. I would feel my ego wounded or my pride wounded. I would flare up, yell, say my piece. And then she would again challenge and I would walk away. That's easy. It's easy to get mad and walk away. You always hear people, oh, just walk away, cool off. That's easy. Man, it's anybody that's been in a real relationship or a relationship, worth having, or a relationship that is meaningful, it is a lot more work to stay and be engaged and keep your emotions in check.
Yeah.
And, since 75 hard, I would say, man, our communication, we have had some of the most, and I've been with my wife. October will be 25 years that I've been with my wife. I've been with my wife since I was 18. We got married when I was 19. And in this last year, we have had some of the most hard, productive, in-depth, real conversations that we've ever had in 25 years.
That's
because
amazing.
I've been able to say, okay, this isn't about me. And if we're just being real, maybe I'm the only guy that avoids fights to try and have sex later, because that's way easier to just swallow your pride and be like, okay, dear, no problem. Then, the much harder thing is, to shelve my own personal ego or what I want and say, what's better for the marriage? What's better for this relationship? What's the harder path, but what's going to get us to a deeper relationship? What's going to get us to that deeper place? And, you might have sex, you might be able to avoid a fight for a while, but man, let me tell you, I don't know of many people that have the support that I have, that, Gloria, since I've been back from surgery for a week, and every morning I still get up at 4 a.m. and I still go out to the garage and I train clients and I still do upper body workouts, even though I'm not on 75 hard right now. I have to do something.
Yeah.
But she doesn't have to be up till 6, and she gets up at 4 a.m. and helps me put on my socks and shoes. She crawls out of bed, literally crawls around on the floor, comes over, helps me put my sock on, helps me tie my shoe, asks me if it's too tight. I go out to the garage and train. She makes the coffee. Man, I'm telling you, that's not because I'm this great whiz husband. It's because I've done the hard work and we've had the hard conversations.
And the hard conversations, the things that are easy bring short-term gratification, right?
Absolutely.
If you avoid something, if you want to just lay down and watch TV or whatever, that's short-term gratification. But going towards the hard thing is what's going to bring the long-lasting fulfillment, the deeper feeling. Which also goes to one of the other things I want to say with what you were saying is almost there's opportunities where you choose to fail. And I've experienced that. I've talked about this where I had a New Year's resolution, like you said, for 15 years straight. Like every year, I'm going to lose 100 pounds. I'm going to, year after year after year. And then 6 months into the year, every year I would think, man, if I only just started 6 months ago. And like that just was such a repetitive process. And it was just me choosing to fail every single time because obviously we're in control of what we do. So what I'm really curious, how did you have that mindset switch? Because it is in the mindset. Like it's not about a diet. It's not about whatever. It's all about your mental ability to continue and endure. So what was the switch for you where you stopped quitting on yourself, I guess?
So, here, and I'll try, I know I can talk forever, so I'll try and be as succinct as possible. People always, this is a question I get asked quite a bit. And I wish there was like this, Paul saw Damascus Road, like this miraculous moment, this, Michael Jordan Zen. I wish there was this switch where like I can pinpoint the day where like this is the day. The closest moment was day 69 when I failed and I decided I'm not going to quit. I'm going to restart. That was close. But the reality is there was never this moment, this switch where I was just like, oh, that's it. And all the pieces fall into place and you have this click moment. Andy even talks about he had that moment where 75 hard came into place. He was doing an interview with James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy. James said something and like literally Andy's like all the pieces just like clicked and he had this epiphany and 75 hard was born, right? Like I didn't have any of those moments. Like when January of last year started and I was 370 plus pounds and I had a torn ACL and meniscus and I was suicidal and I'd been seeing a counselor once a week and I had no idea what else. I didn't have a plan. I literally told my wife, I go, I have to quit my job and I have to focus on my health or I'll be dead. Either I'll kill myself intentionally or unintentionally. She's like, all right. That was my big plan. I didn't know what 75 hard was yet. I didn't there was no, and I share all that to share with people that sometimes people can get a little overwhelmed because they're like, everybody keeps waiting for that miracle moment, right? Everybody wants the Weight Watchers or the Jenny Craig or 75 hard. And the reason I'm throwing 75 hard in with those other things is because they all think it's the thing, this moment, this pill, this whatever. Even 75 hard can't fix you if you're not intentional. Everybody's looking for this thing. And here's the reality. And this is what I tell people from the heart. The reality is this. The reality is the reason New Year's resolutions don't work and the reason that we quit on ourselves and the reason we have bad relationships and bad habits and all these other things is as simple as your credit score. We all have a credit score in life. We know if we want to buy a house or buy a car or do anything, we have a credit score. And that score is obtained through trust and time and repetition and work. When you pay your bills on time and you have good income and you're trustworthy, your credit score goes up. When you lose a job, whether it's your fault or not, or you miss some payments, or you max out, or you spend more than you have and your debt to ratio gets off, your credit score goes down. And you can repair it and build it back up, and you can lose it and go back down. So we all understand the concept of a financial credit score. We all have a second credit score, and it's an emotional credit score. And we have an emotional credit score that we keep with other people. Every relationship in your life, Josh, every single one, whether you've thought about it or not, every relationship in your life has a rating system. There are people that you trust implicitly, that if you had to move in the middle of the night, if your car broke down, there's people, you have a list of people that you know you can count on no matter what. At the other end of that credit score, that rating system, there's people that if they borrow $20, you're never seeing that $20 again. And you just decide, well, I'm just going to give you $20, so it's $20. There's people that if you ask for help and they say yes, there's a 50-50 chance they may or may not show up, right? So everybody in your life whether you're just now realizing it, whether I'm just waking you up to this concept, if you think about it, every relationship in your life, you could grade them on some kind of scale of dependability and not dependable. Everybody, whether it's a spouse, a parent, sibling, loved one, coworker, everybody. That's just the reality. It's not, and this isn't, are they good people or bad people, right? Because we all got like those Uncle Bucks in our life, right? Super sweet guy, can't depend on him, right? And then we've all got those people in our life that are like, they're a hard ass and you maybe don't like them, but you can count on them and they'll come through for you. So this isn't about, are you a good or bad friend or person, okay? So if we can follow with the financial credit score, everybody else in your life, you give a credit score. If we can follow those concepts, here's where it all comes home. You have a credit score with yourself. That's the reality. You have an internal credit score based on whether or not you've let yourself down over your whole life. And when you look at people that succeed and win at life, and you look at people that are still struggling and not succeeding at life, you can go through their life. And this isn't, are they a good or a bad person? This is just reality. You can go through their life and say, have they kept commitments to themselves or have they let themselves down? If Tom Brady says, I'm going to go to practice 7 days a week and I'm going to be the first one there and I'm going to be the last one there and I'm going to bust my ass and I'm going to control what I can control, he's going to do it. And guess what? His results show. If Andy Frisella says, I'm going to be the first one that shows up to work, I'm going to be the last one that shows up to work, and he says it and he does it, his results will show. It doesn't matter. This isn't, are you a good person or you're a bad person? So when you look at like you and I, for how many years did we set the New Year's resolution of, oh, I'm going to lose weight. And then what happens? You tell yourself you're going to do something, and then you don't do it, your credit score goes down. Same as if I said, Josh, I'm going to be on your podcast, and then I don't show up. And then the next week, I'll be there this time, and then I don't show up. Man, this isn't a good or bad thing. This is just the reality is you're not going to trust me. It's the same with ourselves. And so how do you fix that? Well, here's what happened. I had 69 days of repairing my credit score. I had 69 days of, I had 5 things to do every day, and I said yes, and I did them. Man, so how good is it when you go 69, if anybody knows anything about your financial credit score, you go 69 weeks or 69 months of paying all your bills on time and not using your credit cards, whoop, you'd be up in the 600s, 700s, baby. That's just reality. Well, I had 69 days. I had a little taste of the good life. My credit score kind of got into the 500s and 600s. I was like, ooh, that feels kind of good. I woke up for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and every day I said, I'm going to drink a gallon of water. I'm going to read some pages. I'm going to do 2 workouts. I'm not going to eat like an asshole, and I'm going to be intentional. And for 69 days, I did that. And guess what? I had 69 days of credit with myself where I showed up and I said I was going to do something and I believed it, and it felt good. It felt good to believe in myself. It felt good to say, wow, I told myself I was going to do something, and no matter what anybody else said, I did it. And so on day 70, when I woke up and I realized I'd failed, I forgot my picture, all of a sudden, now I'm asking myself for a loan with myself. I'm saying, hey, man, you got to give me some credit, please. I got 69 days worth of good credit score with you where, I showed up and I busted my ass and I did everything I said I was going to do. Man, I just need 75 more days. Give me 75 more days and I'll see this thing through. And 42 years of letting myself down had slowly started to quiet down in the volume of 69 days of saying yes to really uncomfortable, difficult things. And so again, I know it's a really long answer, but it's like, maybe there wasn't this one moment, but there was this realization that we all have a credit score. We all have a emotional credit score with other people, with ourselves. We have a credit score with everybody in our lives, whether we realize it or not. You might have me at a 700, according to you. My wife might have me at a 800 for her. Whereas, dude, I let down 3 years ago that I forgot about, that I haven't even, I'm a 200 to him. I'm dead to him. He's like, Josh is a piece of crap. Forget that guy. So the biggest thing, the takeaway is doing hard things and finishing them builds credit with yourself. And the more credit you build with yourself, the more you trust yourself. The more you trust yourself, the more you're willing to try hard things. Why is Andy willing to do these crazy things like build hundreds of thousands of square feet brand new buildings that he doesn't even have the staff to completely fill? Because he's done other crazy shit that worked. That emotional credit score with himself is starting to pan out. Why was I willing to attempt finishing the last 3 days of 75 hard? Well, damn, sucker. I've had a year and a half of doing really hard shit that didn't make any sense. Why not? What else do I got to lose? Like the internal credit bureau of myself, bank of Joshua Paul Cannelora was like, hey, he's good with us. Give it a shot. If you fail, oh well, we'll take it. We'll take it on the next loan. We'll get it on the next round, but let's give it a shot, man. Because the returns. Now what? Now, so here, it's a win-win situation. It's impossible for me to lose. Because what happens if I give it everything I have until the day of surgery and I fail? True, nobody's gonna fault me, right? Like, okay, but what if I quit like on day 67 and I'm like, hey, I'm going in for surgery in 7 days and I'm just going to go ahead and take the next week off. Now I'm a pussy. That's the bottom line. If people see that, they're like, wow, the guy didn't even try. Like, come on.
More
right?
importantly than people, you
right?
know
you're right.
that you could have kept going.
100%, right? So now what happens? Now in my head, I finished 75 hard the day after knee surgery. So now what? Now I got physical therapy on Monday. And I'm freaking out, bro. Like, everybody's telling me how painful it's going to be, how much work it's going to be. But I've been working out every day since I got out of surgery. So I'm like, I got this. I can do this. Like, it's just physical therapy. I can get through this. You're right. It's more than even what anybody else thinks. It's me. Like, I'm like, I can do this. And so now what happens when I get done with physical therapy? Oh, yeah, I can go back to school. Yes, I can start this new business. Yes, I can take out that loan. Yes, I can pay off our debt. Yes, I can. As that credit score goes up, why can't I do those things? Why can't I do whatever?
Dude, I love that. That was the best answer I could have asked for. And the reason is because it's such a similar story for me. Like, there was no moment. I remember one moment when I decided to start this diet. I was talking to my friend on a balcony, but the moment where I decided to even think about being healthy stemmed from what you said, which I say it in a different way, but the building the credibility with yourself and your own credit score. Like, I remember the first podcast I ever watched was an Ed Mylett podcast.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
He was talking about keeping the promises you make to yourself, which is the same thing that you're saying. And that resonated with me so much because it was like that one moment and I just realized, holy shit, I let myself down more than I let down anybody else in the entire world. And I have to stop doing that. I have to start building the credit score with myself. So I love how you describe that because it's so true, man. I mean, the more you keep the promises to yourself, the more hard things you do, the more self-confidence you're going to have, the more fulfilled you're going to be, and it layers onto each other. I love that.
And it's never permanent, though. And I guess that's, to me, why that resonates with me is because people think, and like even I fell victim to this. I'm like, oh, I've mastered 75 hard. Like, you think that once you have this skill, it's just there. You think, oh, once you're in shape, you're just going to stay in shape forever. Bro, it's hard work staying in shape. Like,
dude, it's hard work staying positive. You know what I mean?
Like, yeah, it's hard work, like choosing that every single day. So the reason I say credit scores, it can go down. It doesn't have to go back down to zero. It can fluctuate 10, 20, 30 points on a day. But give yourself that grace to say, okay, like, do the mental self-awareness. Like, where am I at with myself today? Like, where have I missed a couple payments? Have I been intentional? Did I keep my word? Did I take the best route or did I take the easiest route?
Yeah, for sure. That's necessary. And like, just to your point of hard to stay doing it every day, like, it's very easy to not do anything. Like, it's very easy to sit on the couch and eat Oreos and watch TV. And that's super easy to do. And that's going to provide short-term gratification. But like, what's going to provide my happiness tomorrow? Am I going to be happy tomorrow if I sat on the couch all day today eating Oreos? Or am I going to be happy tomorrow if I go get my workouts in, if I eat healthy, if I take care of all the shit I need to take care of? Like, man.
Absolutely. One of the best examples I give people is parenting. I have 3 kids, 20 years old, 16 years old, 14 years old. You know, the easiest thing to do when they were little, put on a DVD. Here, watch Cinderella, watch Peter Pan,
Yeah.
watch this, and walk away. Like, it's easy to stick an iPad in front of them. And this isn't judgment. I've done it. Like, I'm not judging any
Right.
parents here. But what's easier, sticking them in front of a TV or getting out a board game and playing Chutes and Ladders for the 374,000th time, right? Like, it's way easier to stick them in front of a video. What's going to help them be a better human, right? What's easier when your teenagers are screaming and yelling, to let them back talk, be like, okay, whatever, just go away. Here's your phone. Take your iPhone, leave me alone. Or put your iPhone down on the counter, quit being an asshole, sit down. You can roll your eyes at me all you want, but we're going to figure this out. Man, teenagers are a pain in the ass. They're like the roommate you can't kick out, and they don't pay any rent. It's like, man, it's rough. It's hard, but that's your job as a parent. Like, it's not your job to be easy. It's not your job to take the easy path. The hard path. I mean, you said this already. The hard path is always the better path. Always. Because it's about what you're going after long term. Long term. What's easier? Getting your whole paycheck if you're an employee, or getting like 60% of your paycheck because 20 is in taxes, 20 is in a 401k, 10 is going to, you know, health insurance. Like, man, sure would be easier just taking all my money now. But guess what? End of the year, I like getting a tax return and not owing anybody money. Guess what? In 30, 40 years from now, when my wife cashes out that 401k, I'll be super grateful that we made the sacrifices for 10, 20, 30 years. Can't play the short game.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, as you say it, I know that it's true in all areas of life, but like we were talking about it earlier with obviously health and fitness. We're talking about it with marriage. You're bringing up the examples of parenting right now. I'm thinking about it even from a business perspective. Like, since watching that podcast with Ed, not only did I go all in on health, but also in business, doing all the hard things in all these areas.
Yeah.
And all the areas that I'm doing the hard things in are what are thriving more than ever. And
Absolutely.
it's for exactly that reason.
Absolutely.
Man. So, all right, couple more quick questions. But first, I just want to tell the audience where they can find you. Where should they follow you? Let everybody know.
I'm on Facebook, but man, I have to tell you, it's hard for me. There's so much political ideology, everything's so you can find me on there, Joshua Cannelora. But honestly, I love Instagram, because Instagram is like, bam, here you go. So Uncle Joshy 77. I'm on Instagram. Uncle Joshy 77. And I love connecting with people, man. People, I put my cell phone, like literally, if you go to my bio and you click info, my actual cell phone is there and my email is there. And it's funny, people are like, doesn't that freak you out? I can tell you how many weirdos I've had call me or text me on one hand. Like, I've had 1, maybe 2 psychos in the last year and a half. Most people are like, is that your real number? I'm like, yeah. Then they text me. I'm like, hey, how's it going? They're like, oh, wow, this is really you. I'm like, I'm not a celebrity. I'm just a dude. But yeah, I love connecting with people. So Instagram's the best route. You can DM me or text me or email me. I'll respond. I'm just a normal dude that loves encouraging and helping people, because I remember what it's like to look down at the scale and only see the tips of your toes and a really big number that you didn't like. And I know what it feels like to not have that, and it feels amazing. And so whatever I can do to help people increase their internal credit score, man, I'm all about it.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll put that on the screen for those of you that are watching the YouTube version. So I have a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
I have a question, and I kind of don't even know if I want to ask it now, but I'm going to tell you because, so I was going to say, my question was going to be, what were some of the hardest things when you started your weight loss journey? And
easy.
Okay, what is it?
Outdoor workout, man. When you're 400 pounds, 350 pounds, the idea of spending 45 minutes outside doing something, I avoided heat at all costs, man. Like cars had to have air conditioners, bedrooms had to have fans. Like I didn't go in swimming pools because it was too hot getting in and out. Just let me find the air conditioner and we're good. Like, so outdoor workouts intimidated me. I mean, they just intimidated me, even though it was just as simple as, walking your dog. Like, it was such a mental block. Like, and again, I'd lost weight before. So, like, I'd used my Fitness Pal and I'd used all these apps before. So, like, tracking like, it's easy math. Just eat less than you need to. Like, calories are just energy. So, burn more energy than what you consume. So, it's not hard. So, like, that part I'd done before, but like, 75 days in a row, like 45 minutes outside. Oh, like
I
it
love how you
just
said it's a
was.
mental block, though. I love how you
It
said it's a
was.
mental block but that's why I wasn't gonna. That's why I hesitate on asking you because I know how you got over it. You
You just
mentally
did it.
committed to doing it, right? It was all
That was it.
mental.
And what here's how I knew it was mental is because when I would go to the gym and I'd like do like the elliptical or something, like I would put on some music or I'd put like a podcast or I'd watch something and I'd be like 15 minutes in. I only need to do 45, but I'd be 50 in and I was like, wasn't even exhausted. I'd be like, well, this would be easy. I can just go lift weights for another 45 minutes, which is why Andy's like, they gotta be separate because it's easy to go into an air conditioned gym and bust your ass and everything's structured and nice and neat. You can control the
Yeah.
thermostat but God, 40, even he could have even said 25 minutes outside and it would have been just as intimidating. By 45 minutes, here's the reality, and this is what I tell people all the time. I'm sure that you may have heard this. Like, you talk about 75 hard to a new person. Oh, that's so much. That seems over the top. Same person, without hesitation, will brag on Instagram about whatever new show they just binge watched 734 episodes in 7 days. You have no
Wow,
issues.
that's a great comparison.
You have no issues binge watching 3 or 4 episodes a night of a show. You'll stay up till 2 in the morning when you have to be at work at 7 watching 5 episodes because you got to know what happened next. Like, okay, but I'm nuts for 2 45-minute workouts. Like, it's a mental block because people in their
I
head
would
they
have
hear
been one of those people. I would have been one of those
100%.
people staying up a whole night watching TV, thinking that is over, thinking working on myself for that long is overkill.
Totally. Yeah. So that's an easy question. Mentally and physically, man, if you go to my highlight reel on Instagram, I'm grateful now that I took a lot of videos and pictures early on in my journey, but I got videos in my highlight reel of early on outdoor walks with Daisy, my dog, and I'm like, cheeks are like way out to here, 350 pounds, and I'm like out of breath just walking the dog. Like, it
Wow,
was rough,
amazing.
man. But yeah, unquestionable. Outdoor workouts, most intimidating. That absolutely.
Got it. Okay. Thanks for sharing. I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
You've kind of said this a lot of times over the last hour we've been talking, but I just want to clarify for the people watching right now. For somebody who wants to lose weight, but they've quit on
Mhm.
themselves over and over again, maybe they're like us, maybe they make New Year's resolutions every single year and
Sure.
just never stick with it. What would you say to really have them have the mindset shift to stay consistent and I like to say decide their destiny because that's the name of the show. What would you
Yeah.
tell somebody to really make that shift?
Here, and this is going to sound absurd. First of all, don't do 75 hard unless you're really ready. Because here's another dark reality that even Andy talks about. Unless you're really ready, people that start 75 hard and then quit, your success rate just starts plummeting for like your likelihood of being able to finish it. Because then here's what happens. It's like if somebody has like no credit history and no credit rating and no credit experience, and you give that person a $20,000 credit card, they're not going to know how to manage it. What's going to happen? They'll go make $5,000-$6,000 in purchases, and then the first month their bill comes due and their minimum payment is $600. I don't have $600. That's why I have a credit card. I thought credit, I just make payments. Well, yeah, you make payments, but it's based on how much you use, and your minimum payment now is based. And so it's like, so what happens? And it's not good for your ego, but what do you do when you're establishing credit? Well, you get like $1,000 Credit One credit card, or a Capital One credit card with like a $2,000 limit, or you get like a JC Penney card with like an $800 limit. But it teaches you, right? Like it establishes you. It gets you some skin in the game. What do you do when you're first? My son ran into this, who's 20 now. When your first apartment, you're not going to. Very few people get to buy a house straight from mom and dad to buying a house, right? You got to rent for a while. You got to build up some rental history. You got to learn how to get utilities put on in your name. It's a process, right? So I would say to decide your destiny, to rewrite your destiny for health, start building your credit. And it's literally as simple as this. Start with 2 or 3 tasks a day for 30 days. And it sounds cheesy, but get a piece of paper or a calendar from the dollar store, and literally for 30 days. And don't start on the first of the month. Start right now. Start on a Wednesday, a Thursday, a Friday. It doesn't matter when you start. Just start now. And it can be on any day, but take 30 days and improve your credit score and give yourself 3 obtainable things that you have 100% control over. And I'm not talking about things you can't control. I'm going to lose a pound a day. You can't control that. Water weight fluctuates, sodium. Okay, you can't control that. I'm not saying, starve yourself. I'm not saying, knock out 3 sales every day. I'm not saying, walk 3,000 miles. I mean, 3 things that you can control. You can control no matter who you are. You live in America, you have access to water. Turn on the tap and get water. So start with, I'm going to drink half a gallon of water a day. Ain't nothing crazy. You can do that. 2 liters. I'm going to drink half a gallon of water a day. I'm going to be physically active for 30 minutes a day. Guess what? Not everybody has access to a gym. Maybe you don't have access to gym equipment. You can move your body. You can set a 30-minute timer on your watch, and you can be active for 30 minutes, whether you walk around the block for 15 minutes and then you do 15 minutes of push-ups or sit-ups. Simple. Drink half a gallon of water. Be active for 30 minutes. Read a couple pages a day. Read 5 pages a day, or read one health article. Read a health article online. Just 3 super doable tasks that you can complete, and here's what's going to happen. And this is why it's so important to get like a calendar or a piece of paper. Get a piece of paper and draw out 30 squares. And this is why it's important. Because there is something super gratifying about paying your bill online and getting that confirmation number. There is something super gratifying about seeing the needle on your credit score, whether you use Credit Karma or Credit Facts or whatever, and you see your Experian or your FICO score go up 20 points. Hey, you get the email. Hey, your score went up 10 points. Oh, heck yeah, it did. So there's something gratifying about building that credit up with yourself where you're like, oh, day 3. And you can look and you see 3 check marks, 3 days that you've marked off that, hey, I drank a half gallon of water, 30 minutes of exercise, read an article on health. Just attainable things. And guess what? At the end of the 30 days, if you're like, hey, I didn't die, that felt really good, then increase it, add another task, or jump into 75 hard. Like the reality is, I would love everybody on the planet to do 75 hard. The reality is, I would love everybody on the planet after high school. Before you get to go to college, you have to work 1 year in retail to learn how to deal with assholes and be in situations you can't control. I would love that. Doesn't mean everybody's going to do it. I think it'd be great for character and economy, but whatever. My own opinion. So I think everybody should do 75 hard, but the reality is not everybody's there, and not everybody is going to have the support system. So to really change your destiny, to really shape and decide where your destiny is going to go and how you're going to recultivate that, you have to start an internal shift with raising credit with yourself. You have to be able to trust yourself, because the reality is you're the only one that's going to do the work, and it doesn't matter. You can't do it for anybody else. I mean, when I shattered my kneecap and I was super overweight, everybody's like, "Oh, I bet you're gonna lose weight now." Because the first orthopedic surgeon, I said, "Oh, you got to lose 100 pounds, man. You're not even gonna get on the wait list." "Oh, you do it for your kids. Do it for your wife." Here's the reality: that I didn't care about my kids. I didn't care about my wife. If we're being honest, if I really cared about them, I would have already years prior, when they were babies, when I first got married, if I really was like altruistic and I was really this wonderful person, I would have already been in good shape. I would have already been working on myself out of love for them. But the reality is, I didn't even like myself. If you don't even like yourself, there's no way you can love yourself. If there's no way you can love yourself, don't love anybody. I don't care who you. I'll argue this all day long.
Yeah.
The reality is, and prove me wrong with a track record. Don't come at me with some article you read. Show me with your life. Show me someone else's life. And this is really hard, especially for a lot of Christian circles or evangelical circles. When I say this as a former pastor, that whoa, the Bible says you need to love others more than yourself. This is a little bit different. I'm not saying be selfish. I'm not saying make all the money for you and screw everybody else. I'm saying if you cannot get to a place where you respect yourself enough and love yourself enough to maintain your own health and to do what you need to do to stay alive and healthy and active, you're not going to take care of anybody else. The reality is, Jesus many times says in the Bible he'd go off by himself to pray. That was self-care. He's like, hold on, you monkeys are driving me crazy. I need 30 just by myself. That's reality. Prove me wrong. How many times if you're just having a bad day and if you don't focus, I need 5 minutes. We go on an airplane. What's the first thing they say? When the oxygen masks deploy, make sure yours is securely on your head before you help anybody else. Does that mean? No, bro, if you're passed out, you can't help your kid. If you're not breathing, you can't help your kid breathe. And guess what? Even if for some reason you're able to get your kids' mask on and they can breathe and then you pass out and die, what good does that do your kid? Now they have a dead parent. Either way, take care of yourself. So you want to change your destiny, you got to learn how to love yourself. You got to learn how to take care of yourself. And the easiest way to do that is start doing tasks that you can do, that you have control over. Because again, there's a lot of things we can't control. Can't control COVID. Can't control wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Schools open, not open, business. All these things, can't control those. You can control if you drink water. You can control what you put in your mouth. You can control what you put in your refrigerator. You can control what you read. You can control that Netflix account for $7.99. Cancel that shit. $7.99 will get you 2 cases of water. You can have some high quality water to drink every day. $7.99 will get you a subscription to an online health magazine. I'm not against Netflix, man. I have I have teenagers in the house. I have every entertainment subscription there is: Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus. Name a platform, we pay for it. So that's not what I'm about. What I'm saying is we all have choices. And the minute you can start making choices that you have victory and control over and that build that self-confidence and that credit, you're going to feel unstoppable, man.
I would have given the exact same answer, because literally what the first step to, after I watched that podcast and all those things, I started working out for 5 minutes a day. That's it. 5 minutes. I told myself,
not an
if
hour.
I could do 5 minutes a day for 30
not
days.
Not an hour, not an hour and a half, not
no
90. You weren't doing P90X,
freaking
CrossFit.
Minutes. 5 minutes,
that's
dude.
It.
And that turned into losing almost 100 pounds. You know what I mean? Right? Just the building credibility is what did it. Because I knew if I could do 5 minutes for 2 weeks, then I could do 10 minutes. Then I could do 30 minutes. Then it just comes down to, I can do anything I freaking want to. I just need to want to do it. So this was awesome, man. Thank you so much. You have given so much wisdom to people, and you've had an incredible transformation. We're going to have to do a round 2 because I have about 50 questions on here that I still haven't asked you. But, man, thank you. If you got value out of today's episode, please subscribe and share. It would mean so much to me.
But Josh Cannelora, everybody go follow him. I will put your Instagram handle up on the screen if you're watching the YouTube version. Otherwise, once again, it's Uncle_Joshi77.
Yeah, I changed it. I used to have like a really simple one, and then I thought, everybody started calling me Uncle Joshy. And so it was like that non-creepy way to, like, I'm not your daddy, not your poppy, but I can be the cool uncle. I can have a little bit of wisdom. It can be old, but not creepy, So it's Uncle_Joshy, Joshy _77. So Uncle_Joshy_77. Because that's when I was born. Star Wars, Uncle Joshy, all the good things came out in the 70s. So
love it, man. Love it. Well, thank you so much for being here today, and we'll talk soon. I'll see you in the group. Yeah. Have a great day.